but what a way to end a movie with just this mind-blowing jump scare. Like there's so many thoughts going through your brain when you see this.
Yes, it's so deliberate and intentional because I can't think, and there are probably numerous films, but off the top of my head, I can't think of a film whose last frame took me by such surprise that when the credits hit, I was so baffled in the best way.
Hello, friends. I'm Anderson Marchak.
And I'm Ricardo Segura.
And we are the Panel Bros. Welcome to the panel.
Welcome to the panel. Yeah.
Well, friends, here we are.
Oh, yeah.
If you have been tuning in, you've seen that we've started our filmography for one of our favorite directors, Denis Villeneuve.
So good.
And we just finished doing Prisoners, so we're doing an order of United States release because that's where we live. So we're going to get started here. This movie was released March 14th of 2014 in the United States. Today, the Panel Bros are going to be doing a breakdown for Denis Villeneuve's Enemy.
This is a good one because this is one of those movies where I feel like I could have multiple conversations with different people and we might all pull something differently from it. I remember the first time I saw it, and as I'm watching it, kind of like trying to decipher what the movie is, what it's trying to tell me, versus, on a rewatch, most recently watching it, still feeling essentially the same. Very good watch. Denis wasn't on my radar yet. Like I remember seeing, I'm like, man, who's this guy? I haven't really heard of this director before. And as our filmography will continue and we talk about it, I start to get more and more behind this guy. But Enemy was another great, solid movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. And I just remember thinking the first time I rented it, I remember renting this on Redbox. You remember those Redbox that'd be outside CVS and whatnot? I rented this on a Redbox simply because Jake Gyllenhaal. I remember seeing his face on the poster. I was like, oh, okay, I like Jake. Let's go see it. And I walked away from this psychological thriller, if you will, going oh, I was not expecting that, but thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to talk about it today and kind of see what we took away from it, what it meant to us and whatnot. Because I feel like this is one of those movies that different people can interpret different things, and that's what's going to make this more interesting.
Yeah, I hadn't discovered this movie till later on. Denis had already had a few English language films under his belt. So I went and I looked and I said, on IMDb, I said, that's Jake Gyllenhaal. How did I never hear about this movie? So I went back and I watched it. And it was an experience. We'll say that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah. It was an experience. And we'll refer to that throughout the movie, too, as far as, throughout the breakdown, as far as, now, technically, Denis recorded this before he recorded Prisoners.
Yeah.
But Prisoners got the wide release first. So what happened is that he ended up releasing Enemy while he was already working on his next film, the third English language film, which we'll get to after this movie, of course. So Enemy was based on a book called The Double. And we'll reference that later on as well, because another movie came out at the same time with the same name. So let's get started.
Yeah.
So we have our opening scene here. We're getting a lot of shots here, some flashes here. We see a city skyline. We have a man in a car listening to a voicemail from his mom. She says, "Thank you for showing me the apartment. I'm worried for you. How can you live like this? Call me back. Let's get together again. I love you." And we get a flash of a pregnant woman. And then we get our title card. Chaos is order, yet undeciphered. And I had to look that up. Forrest Wickman of Slate points out that the opening line of the film, "Chaos is order, yet undeciphered," is from the Jose Saramago novel, The Double, on which the film is based. So that's where we got that from there.
Cool.
So we shift now to our next scene here. And we're at an underground club. And a man attends an erotic show. That's all we're going to to get into. It's
Oh
an
yeah.
erotic show,
Yep.
which culminates with a nude woman about to crush a live tarantula under her high heel.
Yeah.
So this is odd here. So,
Very,
I
very.
mean, obviously the concept of a live erotic show, it's already scandalous to begin with. And now we're seeing this woman come, she disrobes and she's about to crush a spider. And I wrote down some thoughts here. What is this? We have these people
Dude,
watching, and
yes.
the woman, before she disrobes, she brings out the spider on a silver platter. And well, our lead, Jake Gyllenhaal, he's covering his face,
Mhm.
as she's about to do it. And something odd happens. So they're watching the show, and some things happen before the woman comes up with the spider. And some people are like, yeah, other people are like, mm-hmm. And then when the spider is revealed, everyone leans in.
Yeah, it's the first time I saw this, I was like, again, this is the opener. So I was already like, oh, we're gonna be interpreting things, this thing. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like I was like, we're gonna be do a lot of interpretation because I was very taken back because as you mentioned, like the idea that the scene opens with an erotic show and you have a bunch of men watching, I'm like, okay, all right, let's see what's going on. But when they introduce the spider, like you brought up a good point, like Jake almost it's almost like he's resting his hands on his face very nonchalantly, almost like boredom, just kind of like just kind of covering his face a little bit. And like you said, everyone's just kind of sitting and watching. And this spider comes out, and all of a sudden there's this peak of interest.
yeah,
And she does the whole she puts her foot above the spider in a high heel. And I'm kind of like, okay, so what? Why are they more intrigued at the idea that she's essentially want to step on a tarantula? I wasn't sure. Again, we're just opening, so again,
right,
it's a very very odd opening and introduction to our Jake Gyllenhaal character right now, as well as these group of individuals that we don't know.
yeah. Alrighty. So we have Adam Bell, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, a college history professor who lives a quiet, monotonous life in Toronto. He rents a film where there's a will, there's a way, on the recommendation of a colleague. And I want to add here that the coworker was pretty adamant recommending it.
Mhm.
He was asking him if he watches movies. Why are you asking me this? Well, if you ever get a chance, check out Where There's a Will, There's a Way. Um, during the viewing, he spots an actor who looks strikingly like himself playing a bellhop.
Yep.
So that's where we get things start to pick up here a little bit. And um, it's interesting where they show this life of monotony here, because it's like he goes to work, he comes home, his girlfriend sees him, they're together, and then he goes to bed. And
Mhm.
then it over and over and over again.
Yep.
So now there's something to mix it up. It's
Yeah.
almost like, well, this is interesting. That person really looks like me.
Yeah,
So
and I can only imagine how odd that is because, like you said, there is a monotony to his nature. Even in one of his lessons, he brings it up. It's like the idea of something happening and repeating itself down to his wardrobe and everything else. And like, I can't imagine what it would be like even for me, like to watch a movie and spot me, but it's not me. And all of a sudden, like you said, like there's something thrown into the mix now. And it's like, wait, what is that? That's piqued his curiosity. There's something different happening that's going to kind of set him on this new path.
searching online, Adam identifies the actor as Anthony Clare. And Gyllenhaal really sells this moment when he sees it. He's like, oh no. Um, Adam rents the other two films in which Anthony has appeared, and he becomes obsessed with the man who appears to be his physical twin. Immediately afterwards, Adam searches some boxes in his own house and finds a photo of someone who looks like himself with a woman's hand over his shoulder. However, part of the photo is torn out, making the woman impossible to identify.
Hmm.
So he sees the picture and he realizes that's not me in the picture,
Yeah.
but I believe that person in the picture is the actor I just discovered. But now he has a mystery now. Now he's like, why is this here?
Hmm.
So Adam stalks Anthony visiting his talent agency, where he is mistaken for Anthony and given a confidential letter. So he's put on the spot here, and the guard says, "Is that a beard for a movie?" He says, "Yeah, yeah, it's for a movie." And he really tries to convince the guard that it's him, and he does so by speaking vaguely. It's like one of the oldest tricks in the book.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He comes in, he goes, "Oh, what are you doing here? It's a Saturday. You know nobody's here." He goes, "Oh, sorry. I was supposed to pick up the thing. They were leaving, I
Right.
don't know, and I got confused." Just kind of like throwing anything out there to see what sticks. And luckily for him, something sticks. And the guy at the front desk is like, "Oh yeah, let me see if they left anything for you." And there just happens to be an envelope sealed just for him, and he's able to take that and investigate a little bit. But yeah, just very vaguely walking in. He's got these big sunglasses and shades, trying to be incognito, but is immediately spotted as this quote unquote Anthony character. And the fact that other people believe he is this other person shows you that, like, yes, they are indeed identical.
Discovering Anthony's apartment, Adam calls the home but reaches Anthony's pregnant wife, Helen. She also mistakes Adam's voice for Anthony's and assumes it's a joke because they sound identical as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Adam insists he is not Anthony. This frightens Helen, and Adam abruptly ends the call. So the music swells, letting you know there's something off now.
Yep.
Now there's something off.
Yeah, and you can hear the stress and anxiety in his voice. He starts to panic because she's when he realizes that not only does he look like him, but he sounds just like him, that like everything starts going really fast because he wasn't expecting that. Because the wife is very much like, "Oh, Anthony, like, what are you doing?" Like, "Okay, we're playing a game here. Like, what's up?" And you hear her concern when he's not letting up on the bit, and he's kind of just like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'll just call back." And she's like, are you okay, Anthony? What's going on? And he's like, "I'm sorry. I'll just call back. I'll just call back." And he hangs up. Like, so now it's almost like, okay, they look identical and they sound identical to the point that his pregnant wife believed that he was Anthony, which again is a huge deal. Like, this isn't just someone that passed by in the street. Like, no, that's his wife. So to confuse those two as one individual lets us know, again, they are much more alike than we know.
So Adam calls again later, and this time he gets Anthony on the phone. And Anthony assumes Adam is a stalker and tells him not to call again. Helen confronts Anthony about the phone call and Adam's existence, but
Mm,
Anthony insists he knows nothing. This is where things get turned up a little bit. So
yeah.
she insists he's cheating on her, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" No, and she brings up a woman. Are you still
Hmm.
seeing her? It's like, "No, no, why are you doing this?" And then he's just like, "It's a man, all right? It was a man calling. It's the same guy from before or whatever." And she's just like, "You're hiding something from me, and what do you think? He's a jealous husband or something?" She's like, "Yeah, something like that." So there's something going on between them there that they don't let us know. But it was a very it was an odd reaction because you'd think she would be more interested in the fact that the man sounded like Anthony.
Yes, this entire conversation was very interesting because he gave off no red flags that would set any cause for alarm, because clearly she had a conversation with someone that sounded like Anthony. Now Anthony's on the phone and you hear him yelling, saying, "Hey, don't call here again." And she's like, "Who is it?" And he goes, "I don't know. It's that same guy from earlier. He said he saw me in some movies. I think that he's a fan of my work, that he wants to meet up." And like, they even share a laugh about it. But then all of a sudden, like, nothing kind of brings it on, and she's just like, "Who was it?" And he's
Right.
like, "I told you." And like, you're kind of like, "Well, where's that coming from?" Which leads me to believe, okay, there something happened at some point or another. Something has happened, because especially in relationships where a partner has cheated on another, sometimes you don't even need to see something that would be considered a red flag. You still have that feeling there of uneasiness, and anything can trigger it. So the fact that there was someone on the phone that he's kind of like, "Don't call here again," and she's like, "Oh," and like, "Who is it?" And she doesn't believe him, and he's like, "No, let's just go out to eat. I promise it's the same guy. Like, what do you think? It's someone's husband?" And she's like, "Yeah, I do." And he goes, I can't do this right now. I can't do this right now. So all of a sudden, like you said, we're getting a little bit more here about Anthony now. That is like, okay, like how does this tie into everything?
So Anthony eventually calls Adam later on, and it's sudden because Adam thinks that he's never going to hear from him again.
Mm-hmm.
And Anthony says they should meet up. Adam is thrilled. He has this really odd reaction. He starts stuttering. He's getting so
Mm-hmm.
excited and even apologizes for it. He's like, "I'm sorry. I just talk really weird when I get excited, but um, I just never thought that this would happen. That you would agree to this." But the thing is who wouldn't have this reaction? You
Yeah, like
know?
it's the whole situation is crazy. So, like, I can't imagine what it would be like if I found someone identical to me to sound like me and called me back after I researched and said, "Hey, we should meet up." I'd be like, "Oh my god, like this is crazy. Like, are we brothers? Like, what's going on?" You know what I mean? But you can tell that Anthony kind of still has this very like monotone, like, "Hey, we're gonna meet. Okay, we're gonna meet. Do you know where this is? You know where this?" And we have our character just kind of just like, oh my god. And like you said, he apologized and said, I'm sorry, I get really weird when I'm excited and whatnot. And they plan to meet that Sunday. They're like, yep, we're
Right.
gonna meet up.
And we've already established it. This man has been living a life of monotony. So this is the most exciting thing that's happened to him in a long time, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, this is something that is outside the norm for Adam, where it's kind of just like what is all this? It's exciting to him. Like it's very exciting.
Alrighty. So, unconvinced, Helen researches Adam, discovers the college where he teaches, and she finds him.
Mm-hmm.
Helen is visibly stunned at his exact resemblance to her husband, though Adam does not realize who Helen is. So, I got this screenshot here if you're on YouTube just to show just the concern on her face um, when she sees him. So, alrighty.
I
Um,
want to definitely put her over because from an acting perspective, I love this scene. I love how she conveys it because there's this. First of all, she's pregnant, right? She's 6 months pregnant, as she mentions in this sequence. And she doesn't believe, obviously, Anthony. So she goes to research. She finds the name in his pocket, Adam. And she looks up Adam. She goes to the university and she sits literally maybe 6 feet away from him. And she's just so stunned. And she does this great performance where you can just see the wheels turning, where she's kind of like, is this Anthony? Is this not Anthony? Like, what's going on? And the way that Adam responds to her is so different than Anthony. She doesn't know how to take it. And like, and it's not even verbal, like it's just all in her face and her eyes. And she's just conveying so much emotion that I was like, man, I gotta give her a shout out because she, like, for some reason, it was so well done that I could just feel everything that she was feeling, whether it was just completely distraught, whether there was fear, whether she was analyzing him, and the way Adam even he looks at her and he sees the concern, and Adam is just very much like, "Are you okay?" And but it's not. It doesn't sound like Anthony. They have the same voice, but the cadence is different. The way he's sitting is different. And you can see her just kind of like completely analyzing it from top to bottom, trying to figure him out. It's a really good scene.
Yeah, so we'll give a shout out to Sarah Gadon. Um, you're correct. It's a lot of we give this a shout out a lot here. It's good when you can act when you have dialogue, but there's true talent there when you can act when you don't have any dialogue. And
Yeah, dude.
she just took that in here. I have some notes. So the look she's trying to convey here is imagine meeting someone who looked exactly like your friend, your significant other, or your spouse. She is so stunned she couldn't even say something to Adam. She just sitting there with that look on her face. She just stared. She calls Anthony just to make sure he answers, even though she just finished speaking to Adam. She just needed to be sure.
Yeah.
And clearly she knows Anthony answered the phone because she just saw Adam walk away from her. You know?
I love, and it was definitely deliberate. I love how Anthony doesn't pick up the phone
Yeah.
until Adam is out of sight. Now
Right.
it's very quick. It's very quick. Like Adam walks off, and as soon as he walks off, there's an answer of the phone. So you're like, okay, yeah, they're not the same person. But I just love that as a choice. When he walks off screen, that's when Anthony picks up, because then that started to mess with me a little bit. And I
Yeah,
was like, oh,
well,
okay,
we're
okay.
planting a little doubts
Yeah. I'm like,
in
whoa.
Helen, because
Yeah,
Helen's like,
yeah.
"Well, I just talked to him. He seemed nothing like Anthony," and
Yep.
and Anthony didn't pick up the phone until Adam left my eyesight.
Yep.
So there's
He
a
left the eyes. Yep.
little bit of doubt there. Good catch. So later back at the apartment, Helen tells Anthony that she went to see Adam, and he's concerned and says it could have been dangerous. She's distraught now over
Oh
the
yeah.
situation and can't believe that Adam, is identical to Anthony. And once again, accusatory. She says, "I think you know what's going on." And
Yeah.
he looks at her. He says, "What do you mean?"
That's a
She's
big
like,
one.
"No, you know what's going on. You're just not going to
Hmm.
tell me. What is this? What is this about?" Like she thinks there's some big situation going on where Anthony's hiding something from her. Why does this man look exactly like you?
Yep.
And a few things went through my mind the first time I saw this. Like, does she think he has a mental illness?
Hmm.
Does she think he has a brother that he's hiding from her? I don't know. Maybe there's a
Yeah.
science fiction aspect going on. Did he get involved with that illegal cloning thing that they were talking
Yeah.
about? We don't
Like,
know.
we have no idea. I remember when I was watching it, I was under the impression that she believed that he was living a double life.
Right.
That she started to believe, okay, maybe he's living a double life, or maybe it's subconsciously, because again, like the way he reacts to her in the scene is not Anthony, and he doesn't waver. You know what I mean? Like, you would assume that if someone was living a double life, when they're approached by their pregnant wife, that you would see a tell, like, oh my God, you're like, oh, well, honey, what are you doing here? I'm
Right.
like, no. But instead, he was like, it's Adam. Like, it's Adam
Yeah.
responding. So, like, to her, she's very, very confused.
Right. Because she knows her husband's an actor, but he's not that good of an actor.
Yeah, and I was thinking that too. Like, he's an actor in the movie, and I'm like, oh man, has he gone too method? Like, what's
Right.
happening here? I don't know.
But she's still, even though she's pretty much believing it at this point, she
Mhm.
still finds a way to say that, like, "All right, you're hiding something from me.
Yeah.
Why does this man look exactly like you?" And obviously
Hmm.
he's like, "I don't know," you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
alrighty. So Anthony and Adam end up meeting up in a hotel room, where the two discover they are perfectly identical,
Yep.
even having the same scar
Yeah.
on their chest here, or on their underneath their on their stomach chest area here. And Adam is taken aback by Anthony's direct personality, says the meeting was a mistake, and swiftly departs. So let's talk about the meeting here, because this was really interesting too. It scared Adam. He couldn't take it. It
Hmm.
scared him to the point that he ran away
Yeah.
and hopped in his car, because he's taking it like the way you or I would take it. Like, this is mind blowing.
Hmm.
Anthony's taking it like
Yeah.
like he's just like being very stoic and like, okay, this is interesting. You look just like, it's like, why are you not bothered by this like I am?
Yeah. It was it reminded me, Adam is taken back because the situation is very real. Like, it's very real. Like everything up to this point, he hasn't had that face-to-face interaction. And it looks like Anthony is being methodical. Like, he's looking him up and down. He even tells him, hold out your hands. He's like, hold out your hands. I want to see your hands. Like, he's measuring up every aspect of Anthony. And we don't know exactly why, but Anthony just gives off the vibe like he's pondering, like he's thinking something, but he's not letting us in yet. And Adam is just like, this is too freaky, like this is too weird, this is too weird. But again, Anthony has this very straightforward approach, arms folded, just kind of reading the situation. And it's a little it's a little jarring because he doesn't have what I would assume a typical reaction would be. Like, Anthony doesn't have that reaction of like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Like, what is this? The way Adam did. He's just very kind of like, okay. Let me see your hands. All right. And that's weird. Like, that's kind of weird. And Adam is just like, I don't want any part of this. This is too weird for me. I got to get out of here.
So the two men began having similar dreams, or perhaps the same dream. It's not explained. Featuring first a nude woman with a spider's head,
Oh, yeah.
and then later a giant skyscraper-sized spider, a kaiju,
Oh, yeah.
walking
We got
amidst
kaiju in here. Yep.
yeah, walking amidst the buildings of the city where they live. Interesting design, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
The next day, Anthony is now stalking Adam. We've switched places now. He sees Adam's girlfriend, Mary, whom he finds attractive. Anthony plots to accuse Adam of sleeping with his wife and shame and manipulate Adam into letting him sleep with Mary to quote unquote get even. He demands Adam's clothes and car keys for a night, after which he promises to disappear forever. Adam complies. Anthony impersonates him and takes Mary to a hotel. So at this point, you have to wonder what is going through Anthony's head here?
Mm-hmm.
It's only because he saw Adam's girlfriend and now he found a way to cheat on his wife. Like, this is like the first thing you think of is you want to cheat on your wife with this man's girlfriend. Like,
Yeah.
this is disturbing. You have a problem.
Yeah, Anthony came off pretty scary here. Because you see him setting it up, you see him performing in front of himself in the mirror. He's like, "That's it. That's the one. Did you sleep with my wife?" And he follows her. He gets on a bus. He follows her to her place of work, and it's very stalker-ish. And it's kind of like it brings you back to the earlier conversation with Anthony's wife, who's accused of him of cheating. And are you still talking to her? So I'm like, okay, Anthony has a history of being this individual, this person who goes out, who cheats, who's self-destructive, who's toxic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now Anthony sees a golden opportunity where he's like, wait a minute, like I can take complete advantage of the situation. I look identical to this guy. I'm gonna falsely accuse him of sleeping with my wife. Therefore, I could shame and manipulate him into allowing me to sleep with his girlfriend, and I get to do this scot-free. There's no building. I don't have to set anything up. And it's like, no, like she'll think I'm him. I'll get to do this, and I'll disappear forever. And it's just, it's very off-putting, and he almost comes off like as the villain, like it's almost like an antagonist at this point. And you're just kind of like very turned off at the idea of Anthony as a whole. Like, you have a pregnant wife at home, man, and this is the kind of stuff you're thinking about doing. Like, this is very weird.
And at the same token, Adam just goes with it.
Yeah,
He
succumbs. Yep.
He's that weak of a person.
Yep.
That he's like, there's no use fighting this guy over this situation. Like, who's going to believe me? Like, there's so many things going through his head that he's just like, all right, fine, do whatever, you know? However, Adam does decide to go to Anthony's apartment in retaliation, and he is let inside. The building concierge desperately asks Anthony, well, Adam posing as Anthony, to take him back to the underground erotic club. So this is where we find out that Anthony actually has a problem with this.
Yep.
So inside the apartment, Adam finds a framed photo on a shelf, which looks like the one he had found earlier in his own home. But now the photo is intact and the woman is revealed to be Helen. So the picture he had at his house was torn, just his side. Now he sees the full version of the picture. So now he's seeing Helen next to him. So now we're starting to think, as the audience member, okay, what does this mean now? That wasn't a similar picture. It was the same exact picture.
Same exact picture. Yep.
Alrighty. So Adam tries to act as Anthony in front of Helen, but it appears that she recognizes his nicer demeanor. Helen can tell it's not Anthony almost immediately. At the moment she knows, she asks him to join her on the bed, and she says, "Aren't you going to take off your clothes?" And he definitely knows at this point, she knows at this point because you can see her behind him. She's
Yeah.
biting her lip. She's into it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she starts touching him. It's kind of weird, actually, because
Yeah.
you know that she knows. Um, but at the same token, it's like, does she not want to believe it? Like she's
Yeah.
like this back and forth thing now. But she does pretend not to notice and then just cuddles with him, and in my mind, it's like, clearly her and Anthony have been on the rocks for some time. She just wanted to be treated nicely for a change.
Yeah, and that was a great takeaway because when Adam comes into the house, one of the first things he does is offer her help. He's like, "Do you need anything?" And she's kind of like, "What?" And he's like, "Well, you walked. It's probably a distance. Are you tired? Are you thirsty? You need anything?" And she's analyzing him. And again, this is not Anthony. And when she starts to really notice it's not him, and she rubs his shoulders, and then she just cuddles, and it made me think of, like, in this scene, she's she knows it's not the Anthony that she is married to, but it carries his resemblance, but that nicer, gentler side that she probably craves from him, and she just wants to feel that, and she embraces it. So it's a really sad scene because, again, she knows it's not him.
Right.
And it's like this, I don't want to say desperate. I don't think desperate's the right word, but it's this attempt to feel what she's been missing from Anthony with Adam. Because she'll look at him, she sees Adam. It's not him, but she sees him, but she's feeling something that she's been craving.
Yeah, she knows it's Adam. She knows because I just described it. When he turned his back, she was kind of into it because she
Hmm.
knows it's not him.
Hmm.
She knows it's not Anthony, it's Adam. And there's a tell too because she met Adam earlier in the movie
Yep.
and he was acting just as pleasant. And because that's the thing, he doesn't know how Anthony treats her.
Hmm.
So that was the big giveaway too. Um, and like you said, even though it was an illusion to her, it's like, well, at least for right now, this is
Yeah.
an illusion I can live with because this is what I want from Anthony, you
Yeah.
know? And later that night, I just previously shared the screenshot here. Helen wakes up to find Adam crying and
Yeah.
apologizing. And she tells him she prefers him and asks him to stay. And then they're intimate together
Hmm.
for the night. So she reveals it. I know, but that doesn't matter to me. And they just, they go for it. And Adam doesn't turn it down for several reasons. One, he just let Anthony, well, he didn't let Anthony. It was almost like Anthony forced himself,
Yeah.
to go with his girlfriend. So he's like, well, it's only fair that this is happening, and in a way, because I'm still thinking, like, why is Adam letting all of this happen?
Hmm.
Why did he let himself be overpowered by Anthony to let Anthony go with his girlfriend, Mary? Why is he continuing to let himself be overpowered? Now Anthony's wife is throwing herself on him and he's not pushing her away. He's just like, you know what? I guess this is where we're at right now.
Yep.
You know? Alrighty. So now we switch over to Anthony and Mary. Back at the hotel, Mary panics in the middle of being intimate with Anthony when she noticed Anthony's wedding ring mark and asks who he is. Because if you're married, you get like a little tan there
Yep.
if you take that ring off. So, as much as Anthony tried, he still couldn't fool Mary. And she's freaking out. She knows he's not Adam. Imagine being in bed with somebody
Yeah.
and they look exactly like your significant other, and then you realize it's not them. Who are you? What are you doing
Yep.
here?
Yep, and
And
she panics, and it's interesting again because he goes, "I've always had that," and she goes, "You've never had that," and she even goes, "Who are you?"
yeah,
Like, it's an immediate reaction, not, "Hey, what happened to your hand? How did you get that?" Okay, if you've always had it, explain it to me. It's like, no, who are you? There's an immediate understanding from her that this is not Adam.
right. And Anthony claims he's always had the mark, as you stated. She forces Anthony to drive her home, and the two get into a fight in the car, which results in a high speed crash
Yep.
and presumably killing them both. And the next day, Adam dresses in Anthony's clothes, and finally opens the confidential letter received earlier. He finds the key to the underground erotic club, given only to select members. He resolves to go there and shouts to Helen that he's going out, but he hears no response. So get ready for the screenshot here.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. So
This dude,
content warning. This is a jump scare.
this absolutely got me the first time I saw it. As we explained, there's a couple shots of spiders throughout, but when I tell you the first time I saw this, I had headphones in and I was not expecting any type of jump scare with sound design, and you hear like a really big thump because that's a gigantic spider. I was not expecting it. Your boy's heart jumped out his chest.
So as he enters the bedroom, he sees, instead of Helen, a room-sized tarantula cowering against the rear wall. So that the spider is scared when he walks in. And Adam, with a resigned look, sighs. And that's our movie. So,
Bro,
so
what a closing shot.
Yeah.
I was like, the first time I saw it, I went,
right.
what? And then you start to sit there and you go, okay, all right, let's analyze this thing.
Yeah. So that's our movie. So that's what our initial thoughts are going to be. This first thing I want to hear from is, we've seen this movie before, but what a way to end a movie with this mind-blowing jump scare. Like, there's so many thoughts going through your brain when you see this.
Yes. It's so deliberate and intentional because I can't think, and there are probably, numerous films, but off the top of my head, I can't think of a film whose last frame took me by such surprise that when the credits hit, I was so baffled in the best way, because I immediately went, okay, what does that mean? Like, what do we, what,
and Adam wasn't even scared. He just went,
no, like, and there's this subtle smirk that he has. Like, it's kind of like, huh. And there's this very small smirk and it cuts, and you're like, why wouldn't that alarm you? Wait, why was the spider scared? Why was the tarantula scared? Why did it cower? Why did his wife become a spider? What's going on? So, like, again, immediately, usually when you walk away from a movie, you go, oh man, like, it was really good and this and that, and you go, okay, let's talk about it. What does it mean? This movie, as soon as it ends, your brain just starts running. You're kind of just like, okay, wait, okay, what is this?
And Mary told him to call his mom. So I guess she answered the phone when his mom called. So at this point, she still knows it's Adam, obviously. Yeah. So it's like the morning after this whole situation, but he does not know this woman. So when she turned to a spider, it was almost like he expected it. It was really odd.
Again,
and by the way, that's the assumption. We're assuming Helen turned into the spider. That's the only logical explanation, because he called to her in the room and she didn't respond.
Yeah, like, no, 100%. Helen is the spider, 100%. Because when we break this down, and like how, like, what we took about it, what it means, what the spiders represent, you know what I mean? Like, the spiders throughout the movie are used more notably towards the female characters. Again, we have the very opening,
right?
When we have the erotic show, you have the female, and then she brings in the spider. You have the other female that we saw that was nude with a spider head. You had conversations with his mom, and you would see the giant spider in the city. And now at the end, you have Helen, who's a spider, and you're kind of just like, what? This isn't a creature feature. So I'm like, all right, Denis, you want us to put our brains on a little bit. All right, let's break it down a little bit.
And he doesn't, he doesn't explain it. As we move along here, we're going to get into our theories about this, but just this, what a way to end a movie. And it got me. It definitely
got me, dude.
Yeah, when I was watching, and because you hear the jump scare, and then, but the spider doesn't do anything. So then you get confused. And Gyllenhaal just, whatever he was supposed to sell, I assumed he did a great job, because they left it in. And he just kind of looks up, and he just,
yep. I'm telling you, it's because it's like, when people talk about horror and comedy, and why they're so similar is because a lot of their elements come from something that you're not expecting. It's from an element of surprise. So again, watching this entire movie, I never had this horror aspect or element, so my body was not prepared for anything to be of the sort. And it's deliberate. As soon as Jake turns that corner, man, you're seeing a gigantic tarantula take up majority of your screen, and with the sound design and the jump scare element that they add to it, you can't help but feel that. So again, the very last thing I felt in this movie was startled and just kind of like, huh, you know what I mean? And there's got to be some great artistic reason on why he wanted that to be the very last thing you feel, like that feeling of shock, of startle, almost as if, when Adam discovered Anthony, just like, oh my God, what? That's how I felt. But what a way to close it out, man.
Yeah. So another note I had here was that Mary and Anthony died in the car. Terrible car accident. It rolled.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's like you're posed with this question: is Adam, after finding this out, is he now going to take over Anthony's life?
Mm-hmm.
Is that because it seems like Helen doesn't care now?
Yeah.
If you notice, Helen doesn't really care. And then Adam's mom mentioned something about being a third-rate actor. Did you catch that? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Earlier in the movie, yeah, you're just going to be some third-rate actor,
Yep.
And
Anthony called it too. I mean, Adam called it too. He was like, huh? And she goes, you need to give up that fantasy of being some third-rate actor. And I was like,
I'm a teacher, Mom. What is going on here?
What? And then again, this is going to come into the theories.
Yeah. A review in IndieWire compared the film to Christopher Nolan's Memento. In Nolan we trust.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And called it an engrossing Kafka-esque provocative psychological thriller that doesn't reveal itself easily. So let's do a little history here for the folks that have never heard the term Kafka-esque. So it's referring to a novelist by the name of Franz Kafka, an author known for his stories that feature disoriented characters and surrealism. So Kafka-esque is an adjective that describes a situation or work of literature that is surreal, nightmarish, or complex in a bizarre or illogical way. So you guys learned a new word today when describing film or literature. Alrighty. So let's take a look at our budget, box office, and the award season as well. So this was an interesting situation here. There is no budget information given because it's secret. A very low budget movie, but it only made 3.5 million worldwide. And I had to look that up here. So clearly no buzz from Oscars or major awards ceremonies here. And it seems like to be a low budget and a low release movie. I was able to find a number: 110 movie theaters in the US. The worldwide number is not available. Yeah. And I had a thought that maybe this was going to be a streaming movie. Mm-hmm. And maybe because it got a release due to Denis' success with Prisoners. Like, he finished shooting this. It was sitting there, I guess, in the can. It was already, and then edited after the fact. And then all of a sudden he had the opportunity to make Prisoners. So he was just like, well, I'll come back to finishing Enemy another time. And then, when you get Hugh Jackman, and Viola Davis and all these other, the stacked cast, it's like, I think I want to finish this movie and put this movie out. I'll come back to Enemy, What do you think happened there, Ricardo? Like, why?
I think that's pretty much it. I think that, like, you had a movie like Enemy, because I remember, I'll be very honest, I don't remember seeing any type of advertisement for Enemy. Again, I found this on a Redbox, like, just looking. I used to just rent 2 to 3 movies to watch, and I found this, and I was like, hey, Jake Gyllenhaal, I like Jake Gyllenhaal, let's pull it up, let's see what's happening. But I think that, like, if you look at, especially when it comes to new directors, Denis wasn't relatively known in the States. So he's got this movie with Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal, Viola Davis, Terrence Howard. You got 4 heavy hitters right there. And I think that being the case is like, okay, well, let's work on that, because more than likely, Prisoners is going to get a pretty decent wide release with just those names attached. Again, Hugh Jackman was extremely popular because, hey, everyone knows him as Wolverine,
Right.
and Hugh Jackman's career was hadn't stopped blowing up. Jake Gyllenhaal was always someone that was known as a great actor. Viola Davis was blowing up. Terrence Howard was crushing it in films at the time. So it makes sense from like a business decision, I think, is okay, we're going to lean heavy into this, right? We're going to get this out. We're going to get attention. After we get that, we'll use that and give somewhat of a, it didn't get a major big release, but even a smaller release just to get Enemy out there in front of people. So yeah, I do essentially believe that's what happened. Because yeah, I don't remember any information about Enemy until I saw the movie, but I do recall Prisoners getting marketing and a wide release and a lot more talk. And you know, from a business perspective, probably use that. So I'm going to use that to help me with my other project.
Yeah, it got a Canadian release the 14th of March, 2014. So it was
Okay.
mostly pushed in Canada, but I also see that that's around the same time it got the US release as well. I had to correct myself. It was 120 US theaters.
Okay.
So 120 US theaters. Um so let's move on here to a little bit of trivia. And first one here states the cast signed a confidentiality agreement that doesn't allow them to speak or explain to the press the meaning of the spiders in the movie. So
I like it.
maybe Denis told them because they
I like
wanted to
it.
know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And the spiders aren't in the novel. Like they're not in the novel at all. So that was a creative choice from Denis to have in the film.
so while no explanation was given for the presence of spiders, it has been analyzed by many people that they represent Adam/Anthony's weakness to women,
Mm-hmm.
making him less dominant. So let's get into that theory now.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what the spiders mean. Like, I mean, you touched on something though earlier. We usually see them, but with women in
Mm-hmm.
some way, shape, or form. They were with the women at the erotic show. When he was talking to the mom, you saw the big spider, the kaiju.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then at the very end, oh, excuse me, we saw the nude woman with the
Yeah.
spider's
With
head.
a spider head. Yeah.
Yeah, weird.
Very
and
weird. I was like,
yeah,
what is that?
yeah, and then the ending where Helen turned into the spider. So
Mm-hmm.
anytime the spider was around or shown, it was when a woman was around, you know?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that as far as why the spiders were around?
Yeah, I definitely think it has to do with the women in particular, whether it's vulnerability to the women, how the women take place in his life. Where like in the very beginning, you have at the erotic show, you have the spider, and all these men are interested in the spider. Like the spider comes up, and it's like you have this dancer who's essentially going to step on the spider, and it's like stepping on the maybe the women that is in their lives, whether it's wives, whether it's significant others, and like they're intrigued at this erotic dancer more than their own wives. And the mother was one, because throughout the movie the mother's trying to get a hold of Adam, right, with conversations. Even Anthony, like even Helen's like, hey, your mother was trying to get a hold of you, etc., etc., etc. And we have this shot where you have this kaiju spider that's kind of like the biggest that we've seen, and I wonder if that is an implication of the type of relationship that Adam has with his mom, where she,
Right.
I don't want to say she's controlling, but she kind of oversees everything. Like she's the, like I don't know what kind of nature he has with his mom, but maybe he's more submissive to his mother, because we get very little conversation with him and his mom. But you know, she's very much like, hey, nope, like you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, throw this out, I'm gonna pretend you didn't tell me this. She even offers him blueberries at one point. He goes, I don't like blueberries. She's like, yes you do, you love blueberries. And then Anthony loves blueberries, and I was picking up on that as well. Like Anthony was big on blueberries, Adam doesn't like blueberries, but the mom's like, you like blueberries. um and then you have the spider to end with Helen with cowering. And I'll talk about Helen's spider a little bit more when we get into our theories. But yeah, I do think that there is something in line with Adam and Anthony and the women in their lives, and using spiders to kind of play into that ideology of what they represent to him, what they mean to him, and whatnot. Again, even the nude woman that has a spider head, like it's like that one was the weirdest one, because I was kind of just like, is that a mask? What's going on? Like, I don't know. And everything else. But yeah, I do think that it's interesting that he was like, hey, nobody talk about the spiders. Like, nobody talk about it, because he wants people to analyze it and whatnot. But yeah, I do think that 100%, like, it absolutely has to do with the women around them and the type of relationship that Adam and Anthony have with those women.
According to director Denis Villeneuve, Javier Bardem was offered the lead role, but the actor felt he didn't suit the character. Christian Bale was also offered the role. There's that name again. And he wanted to do it, but couldn't due to scheduling conflicts with other projects. So now we have Christian Bale connected to Denis twice now. He was almost in Prisoners, and now he was almost in Enemy as well. So we gave Hugh Jackman some love for Prisoners. That's one of, if not Ricardo's favorite actor. Christian Bale's my favorite actor. You know, my favorite modern day actor anyway. And so sorry, Denis gonna have to wait a little bit longer to work with Christian Bale. Hasn't happened just yet. So let's look at some release dates here. We're continuing with our trivia here. The Double and Enemy both premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival the same weekend in September of 2013. The Double would go on to get released the 4th of April, 2014 in the United Kingdom. And then Enemy got released a month before in Canada, 14th of March of 2014. So they both premiered at the same film festival and then got their wide release the following year in different countries, no less. One in Canada and one in the UK. Let me see. I want to be correct here. Yep, the UK. So The Double stars Jesse Eisenberg, and the films are both based on novels called, quote unquote, The Double, but the books and films are otherwise unrelated. So both these movies were based on that novel, but, you know, they have nothing to do with the book there.
Yeah.
Made before Prisoners, Denis Villeneuve saw this film as a practice run, it being his first film in English. So technically speaking, this was his first shot. And he went a little gutsy here with doing a abstract psychological thriller that kind of made people think. It's like, when you want to do an English language debut film, you want to do something that's an easy watch for people.
Yes.
Not one where they have to sit there scratching their head like, what is this about? You know?
Yep.
So maybe it might have been a blessing that Prisoners was how the world was introduced to him versus Enemy, you know?
Yeah.
So this last trivia point here is about Helen, the wife. Actress Sarah Gadon tried telling Denis Villeneuve how to make his own film by saying she didn't feel her being nude was necessary. So Villeneuve convinced her it was, and they eventually compromised on including a single shot done only in silhouette. Because her character is pregnant, Gadon had to be fitted with a stomach prosthesis, which she ended up feeling was so beautiful and realistic, so she wasn't really pregnant. She went back to Villeneuve and insisted it and her nudity be included in the film. Frustrated, Villeneuve told her, but we had all these meanings about how there would be no nudity. So they shot the scene with her nudity clearly visible and included in the film. So the actress, and good on her, she fought for it. Like, no, I don't need to be nude. You know, we'll just get a prosthetic. We'll be good to go. And then after seeing how lifelike of being of making her look, she's like, all right, we can do it.
yeah. Because like the scene, and I know what scene they're talking about. It's when Anthony, well, it's actually Adam pretending to be Anthony, sees her. It's not distasteful. It's because like like a pregnant woman is a beautiful thing. Like it's a beautiful thing. And the scene itself is not sexual in nature. And I'm glad that she stood up for herself because it doesn't need to be that way. We don't need it in the movie. And I'm glad he's like, okay, we'll make it work. And then seeing the prosthetic and her with the belly, how real it is. And maybe she saw like, wow, there is beauty in this. Like there's a real beauty in this. So let's go for it. So I like the fact that they communicate with one another, they worked with one another, and it's great that the actors and director can be on the same page, even if it's something that they don't feel comfortable having in the movie. And he was like, all right, we'll make it work, we'll get rid of it. And she was like, nope, I want it back in the movie. And he's like, all right, we'll make it work. So I like that.
Yeah, and good for him, like, a lot of directors would force the
Oh
issue
yeah.
if that's what they wanted, but this is a very delicate situation,
Hmm.
with actors where they should be in charge of if they want this to happen or not,
Yep.
in the film, and you do that with the risk that you might lose the part,
Yeah. Yeah.
because and that's okay, because if that's
Hmm.
what the director wants, that's what the director wants. Sorry, not this role probably isn't for you.
Hmm.
So let's give some love to the cast here. Of course, we have Jake Gyllenhaal as Adam Bell and Anthony Clare. We have Melanie Laurent as Mary. We have Sarah Gadon as Helen Clare. And we have Isabella Rossellini, well-known actress if you look her up here,
Oh yeah.
as Mother. That's all she's known as.
Hmm.
I'm gonna stop there. Kind of a smaller cast here with the people that got the spotlight here, and I just want to give a love to everybody.
Yeah.
I think Melanie Laurent as Mary was great, and Sarah Gadon as Helen. She did a wonderful job just conveying all these emotions. And let's
Hmm.
give a shout out to your boy Jake Gyllenhaal,
Oh,
because
Jake's great, man.
two different roles, and we could see distinctly when he was playing those two different roles, and he had to play them opposite people, where I have to play myself playing this other character. There's like a few
Hmm.
levels there, you
Oh
know?
yeah, it gets pretty deep. I watched an interview recently where Denis was talking about watching Jake perform and saying that it was a pleasure watching him go from Adam to Anthony and back and forth sometimes with doing scenes and dialogue. He said it was a real treasure to watch him do that, and that Jake was such a good actor. He said Jake was such a good actor that he would have to wheel him in a little bit because he would play Adam and Anthony so different that Denis was like, I want the differences to be a little more subtle. I want you to see them, but I don't want them as heavy. And he said Jake just had this really great thing with his posture. Like you can see, and I can see, like if you watch Anthony versus Adam, Adam kind of cowers a little bit. His shoulders come forward, and Anthony does not. Anthony straight up. And the way that Adam would brush hair out of his hair. He kind of does this where Anthony will go through. And there's little things like that and just the body language and everything else. So yeah, like Jake does a great job, man, where he's essentially acting with no one else and essentially is being both parts of this conversation. And like you said, then having to be Adam pretending to be Anthony and vice versa and dealing with that. Yeah, kudos for Jake, man.
Yeah, and good for him because it got him apart in Prisoners.
Oh yeah.
Because he had such a good time with Denis, and Denis went through a lot of different actors, and eventually came back to, all right, Jake's going to be
Hmm.
my guy for Prisoners. So that was pretty cool. Um, and we'll just give her a shout out again. Sarah Gadon as Helen Clare.
Yeah.
Just a lot of emotions, a lot of acting without saying a single word.
A
Good
lot
for
of
her.
eye acting in here, man. A lot of eye acting from her.
So we're going to start closing things down here, and we're going to close out with our just our theories in general.
Mm.
Before we do that, I did want to just give a shout out to Denis. Like, how gutsy is it to
Mhm.
make this your English language film debut? You know, Prisoners got released first, so this was
Mhm.
after the fact. But this was now in a world where people are introduced to Denis now because of Prisoners and because of all the acclaim that it got.
Yeah.
So good on Denis that, you know what, for my first English language debut, this is what I'm gonna do.
I respect it.
Yeah. So let's get into some theories here. So, oh man, there's so many you could go to here. So I thought about time travel,
Mhm.
some type of time travel situation where that they are the same person, just at different
Mhm.
times of their lives. I thought about that. I mentioned it earlier. I thought about maybe this is a science fiction dystopian future where cloning is a thing. So I thought that maybe they could be clones. Um, I also thought that no, they are related. The mom's lying. I don't believe a single word
Mm.
that she's saying.
Yeah.
So maybe they are brothers, and maybe the mom gave one of them up for adoption. She had identical twins. Maybe
Hmm.
something like that. Um, and so the reason why I went into the science fiction theory is because people are turning into spiders.
Yeah.
So I thought about that, but that could have been a dream too, because there have been dreams that happen throughout the movie. Um, so that's it. Those are basically my theories here. You stumble onto one which sounds the most viable, though. So, but I'll let you go with your theories and then the one that you stumbled onto here.
Okay, so for me, this categorizes as a true psychological thriller. Like when you hear the term thriller, you could okay, based on reality. When you get psychological, we start to play a little bit about what's real versus what's not real. And as the movie was going on, I was like, okay, what if this is like what if this movie is meant to be interpretive? What if this is literally about the subconscious and the duality of man? There got to a point where I was like, oh, here's where I'm gonna go. Like this is where my mind went, especially with the scar and the instances of the mother and whatnot, where I really felt like, okay, Adam and Anthony are indeed the same person. I was like, they are indeed the same person. And when I was watching, I was like, Denis is making a movie, like you said, it's very gutsy for his debut English film to be something like this that you kind of have to sit and ponder about. So when I was watching it, this time, the first time I watched it, I'm kind of taking it as is. The most recent watch, I'm like, all right, let's watch this analytically, let's break this down. So for me, it was the movie is more interpretive than it is literal. And I see it as, Adam is legitimately dealing with the inner conflict of facing himself. Like the movie's called Enemy, like our own worst enemy is ourself. And the idea that Adam is actually coming face to face with this side of himself that is toxic, disruptful to his life. And then you have the spiders that come into play, and it's this relationship that he has with the women around him, which is why when he comes face to face with Anthony, it's like, oh my God, like he's scared about it. But Anthony is very much kind of just like, no, like this is how it is. This is what we're going to do. This is it. This is it. This is that. So for me, it was more along the lines of like, there is no two people. Like there is no Adam and Anthony. Like it is essentially one person who is living this life of just pretending to live this normal life, but deep down there's this ugly side of Adam that is out there that wants to do these horrible things. And as he gets into those horrible things, his life becomes a mess. Like it becomes chaotic. They talk about chaos in the beginning, like what chaos is. And for me, like when you have that sequence of the car crash, when I saw that, it's like this is what will happen to Adam if he allows this side of himself to completely reign free. This side that wants to be a cheater, this side of him that wants to go out and do these toxic things and go to the erotic club. Because what was interesting for me at the beginning with the erotic club, when we find out it's Anthony, like
Right.
Anthony is the one that goes to these clubs. At the end, it's Adam who pulls out the key. And when Adam pulls out the key to go to this club, he asked Helen, do we have plans tonight? Because I have somewhere I gotta be. And that's not Adam. Like Adam doesn't have an interest in this place. That's Anthony. And when he says that, I was like, why would Adam have this kind of like curiosity in knowing what this place potentially is? Of like, hey, I know I've got this really good thing with you now, but I kind of have somewhere to be. He's being dishonest. He's lying to her because he's not telling her what it is. And then when he goes into the room, the spider is cowering. It's scared. And like the way I took that was like, okay, like she turned into the spider because again, the spider represent the women in his life. And she's afraid because she's still like, oh my God, you're still this person, this ugly person. You know, previously they had the hug, they cried together, they made love. There's this, and she's feeling like things are back on track. And all of a sudden, from the other room, he's like, we got plans. I got somewhere to be." The distrust is back. It's immediately like, okay, no, Anthony's back. That's Anthony. And she cowers because now she's scared again. She's like, and that's why he has that look of just like, sigh, like, whatever. Yep, this is me now. And it's just like, dude, no, that's not you. And it brought me back to the mom when she's like, "Oh, you want to be this third-rate actor?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, is that a fantasy? Like, is that this other side of Adam where he's created this illusion, this fantasy that he's an actor, that he's this, that he's that, you know?" And the idea that he wants to sleep with the girlfriend, again, it ties into that whole idea that he wants to, commit adultery or cheat or infidelity and everything else. And it's weird because to me, it felt like this is one person legitimately dealing and facing the consequences straight up. And we have those moments where he has the breakdown. Like he says, "I'm sorry." When he's crying, he's like, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And he's crying and she's being there for him. And it's like, that's that moment. It reminds me of when a guy, or anybody, I should say, cheats on their spouse and they're sitting there and they know they did wrong and they're like, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." And she's like, "It's okay, like we're gonna make it work." And they're working it out, and he puts on the clothes and he's ready to go, and he pulls out that key, he opens the letter, we have no idea what's in that letter the whole movie, and he pulls it out and it's the key. And all of a sudden he slips back into Anthony, he falls back into that, because again, Anthony would not care whatsoever. That's why it's so easy for me to see him just accept that life, because it is his life. Like Adam is accepting of this life where he's just like, "Yep, I'm just gonna wear his clothes now, I'm gonna do this." Because again, that would be very strange in itself. Like, how would Adam just be okay taking over this person's life? Like, what are we doing? Like, what's
Right.
going on?
And
But he just accepts it.
right. And we touched on that before. So that was where I was just confused on taking this literally, because the next day, Helen doesn't say anything about this whole Anthony Adam business.
Nope.
She just says,
Gone.
"Oh, your mom called."
Yep.
She's, it wasn't just like, "Oh, we can't do this again." No, it was
No.
just kind of like, "Oh, I'm buying into this illusion that you thought
Mhm.
that Adam and Anthony were two different people." Because remember, Anthony didn't pick up the phone until Adam left her eyesight,
I'm telling you,
you
like that,
know, and
it was getting me.
Adam and Anthony, they're never together whether people can see them. It's always
Yeah.
like a closed off space.
Yeah.
The only thing though is that Mary saw the finger,
Mhm.
the ring finger, and now we're wondering what is that about there? You
Yeah.
know, like it's
Ah.
confusing, but maybe when they died in the car crash, that was the Adam Anthony character, those desires dying.
Yeah, that's how I took it too, was that it was Mary's an interesting character because Mary has no interaction with anybody in the movie but Adam. She has zero interaction with anybody but Adam. So they always meet up at the apartment. She leaves and whatever. And again, when Anthony's following her, he follows her to work. He's watching her. And I was like, "Oh, like, is this linear? Is this how Anthony met her? Is this how he discovered her?" Again, I'm trying to see what's literal versus what's not. And she freaks out about the wedding ring. So there was even a point where I was like, is Mary even real? Is this fear that he has that one day he's going to be caught? Is he going to get caught by being promiscuous with women? And when he loses control, that's why the car crashes. Because they also make it a point, and he makes it a point, that when the car crashes, there's no blood and there's no bodies. They even zoom up to the car. So I was like, "Oh, we're going to get the close-up shot of them dead in the car." We see nothing. All we see is a cracked windshield that looks like a spider web. That's it. It's just a cracked windshield that looks like a spider web. And I was like, "Ooh, web of lies. Like, this is what a web of lies is going to get you. It's eventually going to go chaotic. You're going to crash and you're going to lose it all." So again, I was like, I don't know if I even take the crash literal. I don't even know if I take Mary literal, or if it's the idea again of him just being like, "This is what's going to happen. You're going to lose complete control if you keep doing this." And Adam is dealing with holding all that in. And you bring up a good point. Helen's like, "Hey, your mom called." If Helen was fully aware that this was a different person, the idea of being like, "Hey, go call your mom," Like that is weird in itself because that wouldn't be his real mom. This is a
Right.
different person. But she's like, hey, call your mom, do this, do that. And from the other room, she knows that Anthony is back because he lies to her. Do we have plans tonight? I got somewhere I gotta be. She knows she doesn't trust him still. It brings up the infidelity earlier. So with that line is like, hey, I got somewhere I gotta be. It's kind of just like, oh, so when she comes into the room, she is now the spider and she's cowering. She's afraid because the Anthony that she thought had left is still present.
Right.
He is still there.
And when he goes to the school, um, when he comes out, he's just so much different to the point
Mm-hmm.
that it actually fools her. So maybe that's why she was scared
Oh yeah,
when she saw him
yeah.
just being like that, and then when he shifted, when he walked into the house as Adam, like, she's playing along with it
Mm-hmm.
because now it's like, oh, so no, she doesn't buy into it. He's just trying to be different now.
Yeah.
It's
And like when she saw him on the bench, there was a part of me, and this is after I've seen the movie like numerous times. I didn't this was not me the first time, trust me. But like there was a part of me that was like when she looks at him and she's studying him, it was almost I was kind of thinking of like, I wonder if she's seeing the man he used to be. Because every once in a while we have people in relationships that when they first start dating or when they first get married, sometimes people will change, and we've heard this in arguments and debates between people. It's like, oh, you've changed, why aren't you the way you used to be, why aren't we loving like we used to be? And it, like, I was like, oh, what if this is who, like, this is the side of Anthony that she misses because she's kind of just so taken back by him, and she doesn't say anything, and she's just enamored by him. It's like, are you okay? And she's just like, yeah, I'm fine, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if this is her missing that. And again, it ties into the fact that when he's asking her all those things like, hey, do you need anything, do you want water, what's the first thing she does? She cuddles him in the bed. She just wants to be held. And it's like she's longing for the person, like this person, this part of him, but he has this side of him that he can't be trusted, whether it's toxic, distrustful, infidelity, etc., etc., etc. Like, you name it, it is what it is. But she's aware of it, and she's coping, she's dealing with it. But in a nutshell, for me, like I think there are certain scenes in the movie that are literal and some that are not. Like, I think the scene where they meet each other, I don't think that's a literal scene. I think that's literally him coming face to face subconsciously with that other side of himself, and that's why it scares him so much. That's why he's like, no, I don't like this, I want to go, because he's seeing this side of himself that he rejects. Because, and we've heard this too from people, they go, I don't know why I did it. Why did you cheat? I don't know why. I don't know why I did it. I don't know why. That wasn't me. It was a mistake, etc., etc. You know what I mean? And it's like he came face to face with that, and it startled him. And that other version, that Anthony is like, no, this is what's going to happen. And that's why I also thought it was important that he goes, we're going to do it one more time, and you're never going to see me again. You're never going to see me again. I'm going to do this one thing. I'm going to even it out, and you'll never see me again. I will be out of your life forever. Almost like the person that does something they're not supposed to do, and they go, I'll do it one more time. I'll
right.
do it one more time, and I'll never do it again. So that's how I took that particular scene right there at that moment.
I read to you that we had somebody from Slate compare this movie to Memento,
Mhm.
and Memento was Nolan's big budget debut because he
Yep.
did Following as his independent debut, but then he got the big budget debut to do Memento,
Yeah.
and in a similar way, Nolan went gutsy because the
Oh yeah.
movie shot backwards essentially.
Yep.
So you know that's what made me think that maybe Enemy was trying to play with time as well.
Hmm.
You know, you could say that maybe it's a time loop, and then
Yeah.
maybe it starts all over again. That's why that's where the Adam and Anthony character starts to separate, because now he's become this character again, and then Adam will find him again later on. That we're going to real
Yeah.
sci-fi. But
They were getting me, man. They were
yeah,
getting me
it's a lot
because
of theories, but I like yours, and I went from the literal aspect during this breakdown, but I think
mhm.
you sold me on this. That's a
I there
it's a
it's the little
well, the
things. It's
context is there that you were right. Anthony didn't pick up the phone until Adam left her
so he
eyesight,
walked off screen, and I'm
and the
like,
mom mentioned the third-rate actor thing.
yes, there's 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 a couple things. The blueberries was a big one for me
Okay.
because Anthony comes at Helen because there's no blueberries. He comes home from jogging and he goes, "Oh, I was jogging. I caught up to this young kid. You know, he's always beating me, and I caught him. Where are the blueberries? Where the oh baby, I don't mean to be mean. It's just it's something about the blueberries." Then Adam was with his mom and she offers him blueberries. He goes, "I don't like blueberries." Because what are you talking about? You love blueberries. So again, it feels like duality of man, where
Yeah.
Adam doesn't like blueberries, but Anthony does, because Adam likes to do things a certain way, but Anthony, that other side of him, does it completely the opposite. So it's like, oh, you have this, you have one with the wedding ring band, you have one without, you have one that's monotonous, that's kind of keeping things the same. You have the other one that is an actor that likes to do things different, take on different roles, take on doing this, doing that. So like those things started messing with me, and I was like, oh, but the fact that they both had the same scar, the
Right.
fact that the mom brought up the acting, the blueberries, like all that stuff, I was like, okay. I was like, I think Denise going like again the artistic route and wants interpretation. So like I was like, there's certain everything like everything with Helen, I was like, is a literal scene. I was like, everything with Helen is literal, outside of her becoming a spider. But everything else, I was more open to be like, okay, is he having this conversation with another person? Is it just himself? And for me, it was like, all right, the duality of man and coming face to face with that side of oneself. Because the biggest one for me, and I repeat myself, the biggest thing for me was the Adam switch at the end.
Yeah.
Adam completely switches when he pulls that key out. And I was like, wait a minute. And then the comfortable nature that Anthony has, where like he's in control, was all of a sudden in the room. And I was just like, oh no. And then, Helen is not happy about this. She's scared. She's sad. She's scared. And I was like, yeah, she thought that side of him was gone, but she can see that she can't trust him yet. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah. And how about that the coworker that suggested the movie to him?
The the, the
That
coworker
one
was the coworker was interesting. He was like, "Oh, some about movies," and he goes, "Did you have a
where
movie
where there's a will, there's a way.
where there's a will, there's a way? Like where there's a will, there's a way." And again, we don't see that character again either. But like Adam says something interesting. He goes, "I'm not really in the movies." He goes, "I'm not really in the movies. I'm not. I'm just not in the movies." Yeah, sorry, but what do you have in mind? And he goes, "This and that." And again, like him saying he wasn't into movies and then Anthony being an actor, again, felt like someone trying to remain as distant as possible to like make sure that these two entities don't ever come face to face. So you have Adam, who's like, I'm not into movies, but this other side of Adam, who's Anthony, who can do all these terrible things, is an actor. He's in movies. He loves movies. The idea that he's not into movies is so he would never have to face Anthony, because what happens when he watches a movie? He discovers Anthony. So it's like, oh, I don't like movies. I don't do them much or whatever. I'm not really into them. He always wanted to keep that thing away from him. He never wanted to come face to face, because the moment he came face to face, he had an external crisis. He was like, oh, I got to figure out who's this. Like, I don't know this person. He looks just like me. But yeah, so I thought that was his way of trying to like separate the two worlds. Like, I don't like movies, because if he watches movies, there was a clear chance he would see that Anthony character, if that makes sense.
All righty. Folks, we're gonna wrap it up on that note there.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was the Panel Bros official breakdown for Denis Villeneuve's Enemy. If you could please give us a like, share, and subscribe on YouTube at the Panel Bros, we'd appreciate it. Those likes, shares, and subscribes, they help our reach. And also, if you could please leave a comment below letting us know how you felt about our breakdown for Enemy. And if you could give us your theory on Enemy, we'd appreciate that as well. Stick with us, folks. We're going through Denis' full filmography. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Sicario's next.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So that's going to be next year. And we will take that movie on as well. All righty. For Ricardo Segura, this is Anderson Marchak saying thank you for coming to the panel.